Good morning, and welcome to another Seize the Day. Trust you guys had a great night's sleep, ready to begin a new day, and it's always good to have our first thoughts directed towards the one who gives us life and breath. So thankful for these opportunities that you and I have together, and we'll just fix this little camera here just a little bit. There we go. I last night had a great opportunity just to meet with some old friends from Bethany as people are beginning to become a little bit more comfortable about getting out. It was great to see some old friends and to make some new acquaintances. So I am thankful for that. Also, just want you to know, like, we're in the middle of a series called Origins, and the series is all about us really coming to an understanding of the birth of Jesus and how all of that takes place in the context of Matthew looking through all these Old Testament passages and seeking a way to make sure that they're firmly embedded in the truth as we see it in the Scripture. So today we're just continuing this study on a passage of Scripture that this past week found such great tragedy with Herod becoming so irate at the possibility that someone may be taking his position, that he would resort to such a violent act and just take the lives of innocent children, 2 years of age and under. Such a hostile act, and yet, unfortunately, we live in a world that's filled with acts like that, don't we? We see it being conducted against the innocents, all over the world, and it's just a testimony to that, to the reality that life as we know it in this world is broken. And so, out of that text, though, we came to understand that the text that Matthew was referring to in Matthew chapter 12, in Matthew chapter 2, like around verse 18, was from a passage in Jeremiah chapter 31, a passage that speaks about a city called Ramah that was on the border of Judea and the what was known as the Northern Kingdom. And Ramah was situated in this place so that when all of the destruction happened in Jerusalem, all the captives were taken and they were stationed in this city called Ramah. And from there, they began their march into exile. So no one would have, in that day that Matthew was writing, would have, it would not have gone past their notice of what Ramah stood for, any more than, like, in our day, people make reference to the World Trade Centers. People have never even, maybe at this stage, many have grown up without ever really seeing the original towers. But what we do find is there's no one that doesn't understand what happened on 9/11, and so it's those kind of historical events that begin to mark out a people that has taken place for the Jews in Ramah. Ramah became this place of just reiterating again the exile and how God took all the people and brought them out of this land. But in that text in Jeremiah 31, while Jeremiah is prophesying about what is to come, one of the notes that I don't want you to escape is that throughout the book of, throughout the chapter 31 of Jeremiah, it's all about hope. It's about God promising them that they will come back, that He's giving them a future, that all of what is taking place is going to come to a resolution, that God's judgment is not the last word. God is extending grace, and He's always been extending grace. And The reference to Rachel weeping over her children is followed by God saying, "Weep no more. Wipe the tears from your eyes, because I promise to give my people a future." And that's what God is reiterating in chapters 29, in 30, 31, even through 32 of Jeremiah. So there's this sense of hope and restoration. And so think about that for a moment. Matthew is writing to us about the birth of Jesus, how this all came to pass, talking about the heated hostility that has been created the moment that Herod found out from the wise men that the king of the Jews has been born. He understood that this was a threat to his power, to his position. And so from that point on, he conspired to do whatever he could to eliminate this threat, making it unsafe for Jesus to stay in Bethlehem, carried off into Egypt, and all that typology now of the stories of Moses and how God would raise up a deliverer, God, how he would deliver his people. All of that now is the background for these journeys that Jesus is taking. And now we find him here, not so much talking about the Exodus, right, where Moses took the nation of Israel out of Egypt. Now this reference is to another one of those pivotal historical moments in Israel's history of the exile. And yet, in the midst of great tragedy, what does God do? But he begins to reaffirm them that this is not the last word, that God says, I have a future for you. Jeremiah 29:11, a text that many of you have heard over and over, right? Where God says, I know the plans I have for you, not to harm you, but to prosper you, to give you a hope and a future. That's a text that's given to the people of Israel before they're being carried off into captivity. God is saying the judgment that is coming on Israel has been long awaited. They have turned their backs on me. They have become apostate. They have followed all the other gods around them. So God is bringing judgment because God is a holy God. Sin needs to be atoned for. And when it comes, it's always interesting to me that God is always the first one to extend a hand and to give hope and to give an assurance that he will never leave us or forsake us. So, friends, you look at this text, and now what I'd like for you to do is I want you to think about how God always has this long-range picture. Because if we understand how God begins to see how things are working out, it gives us a sense of assurance in the way in which we can live out our lives. So, for instance, I want you to, for a moment now, I have this passage that I'd like for you to look at, and it's found in Hebrews chapter 12, verses 1 through 3. It says, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. Let us fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinful men, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. You see in this text, and I'll leave it up here on the screen for a little bit, that we're given this example of Jesus, who it says is the author and perfecter of our faith. Jesus, who has come now, right, as the promised Messiah. I want you to think of all of the situations that have transpired in the opening chapters that we have here in Matthew's gospel. From all the things that took place with Joseph, with the wise men, with Herod, all the citizens of Jerusalem. It says all of Jerusalem was astir, right? Things were not going well for them. So many places that you begin to realize, boy, there's so many hardships that have happened. Having to leave in the middle of the night because of the threat of Herod. Um, Living again 150-mile journey all the way from Bethlehem all the way down all the way down to the closest border to Egypt. Then having come back again, and then recognizing, as we will in this coming week, that the threat has not been totally dissipated, and so now he's got to move from Bethlehem all the way back to Nazareth, up in Galilee. And I just wonder, like, if this was your life, and you have some years behind you, and you go back and you look at these pivotal moments from the beginning, are we not always tempted to see how life it just didn't seem to fair is not a good word, but what I'm saying is that there's so much turmoil, so many contrasting experiences that take place in one's life, that you look back and you have a tendency of just saying to yourself, wow, this should have been a hint to me that life wasn't going to be, this bed of roses here, right? Like, there was going to be struggles. I could see it even from the very beginning. And we have a tendency of looking back like that and then drawing up all of these past experiences almost to underscore the difficulties that we're experiencing, and sometimes really how the situations have been so less than ideal, that if we're not careful, they can overcome us, and they can leave us in positions where we never really get past it. Where Jesus is making a promise many times through the scriptures that we are more than conquerors through Him who loves us, and yet very often we're allowing circumstances in our life to just keep us in a very very bad spot.